This is KWCH 12 Eyewitness News this morning.
Today is the enrollment deadline for the little ones in Wichita Public Schools. Parents of pre-K through 5th grade students can choose to learn on-site or using My School Remote. If you've already enrolled but don't choose a learning option, your child will automatically be enrolled for school in the classroom. Middle and high school students don't have an option. They will begin the year remotely.
Parents of dual language students at Horace Mann Magnet School now have a better idea of how kids will learn this year. Teachers tell Ruby Munguia they plan to continue teaching in both English and Spanish. As
schools prepare to welcome some students back, district officials realize kids will get sick. What's important for parents is being able to spot the difference between a case of COVID-19 and the common cold or flu. Dr. Rebecca Reddy with Redbud Pediatrics says symptoms of a common cold are sneezing and runny nose. If your child has the flu, they'll have a fever, chills, and a headache. Dr. Reddy says some kids with COVID don't have symptoms or they're very mild. She says spotting the difference will be confusing for families, but it's important to be knowledgeable, especially during this pandemic.
If your child has cold symptoms that you feel like are severe, such as having a fever over 102, or they're having flu-like symptoms, they're achy, their body hurts them, or you see that their energy level is really poor, or that they're sleeping a whole lot more than you think they would just with a typical cold. Those are symptoms that would make me concerned enough that I would want to screen your child for COVID.
Dr. Reddy says if your child has cold or flu symptoms, it's best to keep them home until they feel better.
Each school district has a reopening plan, which includes steps being taken to keep your kids safe this school year. We have this section called Schools and Coronavirus on our KWCH 12 News app. When you click on it, you'll see information for each district. We're also tracking the latest from private schools and colleges. If you don't have our app, it's a free download and a great resource for you.
New this morning, the Associated Press reports Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe plans to resign due to health issues. Abe says he has had ulcerative colitis since he was a teenager, but the condition was controlled with treatment. Abe's term ends in September 2021. He's expected to stay on until a new party leader is elected and formally approved by Parliament.
The 2020 presidential race enters its final phase as we inch closer to the November general election. Both candidates, President Trump and Joe Biden, are the official nominees for their respective parties. President Trump accepted his party's nomination last night to close out the Republican National Convention. The president addressed a crowd of supporters from the White House South Lawn. There, he defended his record and laid out what his plans are for what he intends to accomplish if elected into a second term. The president devoted a large part of his speech to criticizing his opponent.
Joe Biden is weak. Make no mistake, if you give power to Joe Biden, the radical left will defund police departments all across America.
These guys are rooting for violence. That's what it's all about. To prove that you should be scared of Joe Biden, they're pointing to what's happening in Donald Trump's America. You know, I made it clear from the beginning that there's no place for violence or looting or burning.
Both candidates are now focused on campaigning. President Trump will hold a campaign rally in New Hampshire this evening. Biden will resume in-person rallies after Labor Day. Both candidates also plan to participate in 3 debates. The first is scheduled for September 29th.
The Associated Press fact-checked the president's speech last night. He talked about various topics, including the pandemic and veterans' health care. Here's some of the AP's analysis. When it comes to coronavirus, President Trump said, quote, "The United States has among the lowest case fatality rates of any major country anywhere in the world." The AP says that's not true. According to data from Johns Hopkins University, the U.S. sits right in the middle when it comes to mortality rates in the 20 nations most impacted by the pandemic. The president also said, quote, "We passed VA accountability and VA choice. We are taking care of our veterans." The facts? The AP says this claim is partly false. The Trump administration did not get Veterans Choice approved. President Barack Obama did in 2014. The Trump administration expanded it under a 2018 law known as the Mission Act. It allows veterans to get health care outside the VA system at public expense under certain conditions. New information about the man shot by police in Wisconsin. What we've learned about his time in the hospital still ahead.
Expect more from KWCH 12. This is Eyewitness News this morning. Online at kwch.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter.
Today, the teen accused in the deadly Kenosha protest shootings is expected to make his first court appearance. Kyle Rittenhouse is jailed in Illinois and is facing extradition to Wisconsin. Rittenhouse faces multiple charges, including 2 counts of first-degree homicide and possessing a weapon while under the age of 18. His lawyer told CBS News he was shooting in self-defense. The lawyer claims Rittenhouse was attacked on the streets of Kenosha, and now he's being attacked in the media and on social media. Meanwhile, CBS News has learned the man who was shot by a Kenosha police officer is handcuffed to his hospital bed. Wisconsin's governor says he doesn't understand why that would be necessary. Jacob Blake was shot multiple times in the back following an altercation with the officer, who we now know is Rustin Shesky. Blake remains hospitalized and is paralyzed from the waist down. Wisconsin's Attorney General also shared new details about the shooting. The AG says investigators recovered a knife from the driver's side floor of Blake's SUV. Officials called out what they called a double standard between Blake and Rittenhouse. They say both had weapons, but Blake was shot, Rittenhouse was not.
I mean, they talked about finding a knife inside of the car, not even on Jacob Blake's person, but this guy's carrying around a long gun, killed somebody, just walking freely, was able to get back home to Illinois. Then, we got a much bigger problem on our hands. That's the case.
Reports say the FBI sent special agents to Kenosha to help in the investigation. The officers involved in Blake's shooting have been placed on leave. They have not been charged. Wisconsin officials say they are fully cooperating with the investigation.
Today in Washington, D.C., thousands of people are expected to march for criminal justice reform on the 57th anniversary of the original March on Washington. The march comes as protests continue and tensions rise in the wake of the police shooting of Jacob Blake. The Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his landmark I Have a Dream speech on this day 57 years ago. Today, another march is planned. The 2020 March on Washington is organized by the Reverend Al Sharpton's National Action Network, the NAACP, and others. It's called Get Your Knee Off Our Necks. Organizers say just like that day in 1963, the main message of today's march is to judge people by character, not the color of their skin. The march starts at 1 p.m. Eastern at the Lincoln Memorial and will go to the MLK Memorial. Attendees are required to wear masks, gloves, and sanitizers will be available.
It is 5:48 on your Friday morning, and look at this crazy weather graphic Jake has given us. Reminds me of a carnival, maybe because I personally am happy about the way temperatures are headed. He says storms are a contributing factor. He's got all the details for you in your Storm Team 12 forecast.